Okay. Good afternoon. I'd like to officially call to order the New Shore Planning Board for Wednesday, February 8th. First item on the, before I start, Toriab has been continued until March 8th. So if anybody's here for that, we'll see you next month. First item on the agenda is election of officers. We do not do public comments. No, we don't. No.
Not in the 10 years.
No, we don't do public comment. We do not. Okay, I'll give you, go ahead, 2 minutes if you can do it in that amount of time. The green light's on.
It's on. Thank you. So the reason why I'm asking to speak, and I thought there would be public comment, is that I'm asking you, Ms. Cummings, not to run for chair, and if nominated, to decline. And there are 3 reasons for this, at least. The first is you have been the chair for many years, and not specific to you, but to all town committees, boards. It is not a good idea for someone to be in the chair for an extended period of time. It's not good because of the undue influence of the chair, and it's not good for bringing along other people within the town to gain experience of the chair. So on that basis alone, I don't think that you should run for chair. I have tried to get this through the town council when I was on the town council, and after other town councils became manifest. Even though there's lots of complaints about the situation, the town has never done anything about that. The second reason is with a situation that I was involved in on modification of the solar ordinance. I spent 2 years of my life coming before this board and the previous manifestations of this board. Only to have at the end a stalemate in which nothing, I would say, innovative went forward. In fact, the language was regressive. And now we have a solar ordinance where one cannot place in the front setback of their property a ground-mounted solar array without going through a variance or a supplemental use permit, which are by design are onerous. I had hoped the town council would see this and take action to stop that, but they thought it was a good start. And I can tell you, after having had to work through this for years, it has been not a good start. It's a bad situation. And the reality is it's so inconsistent with other allowable uses in the front setback of people's properties that it's inconceivable today that when we are basically at a proxy war with countries like Russia, China, and Iran, where the weapon of choice is energy, that this town as a planning entity would take such action to really make it so difficult for people to use our own indigenous energy resources. The third reason has to do with 8 on the agenda today. Planning has been aware of the problems of affordable housing for years and has done scant little to address this issue. Almost all the modifications that come forward before you are from people like me. That is just absurd. Your job is to plan. And it's people like me who are not on planning that have to devise language and have it struck down, modified. You do not take the initiative to do this. It's people such as I that do this. And that's not right. So for those reasons, I would like to see new leadership planning. Thank you.
Thank you, Chris. Obviously, I don't agree with you, but thank you for your opinion. Okay, I will make a motion to open the nominations. Do I have a second for that?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, all right, nominations now in order for Chair of the Planning Board.
I nominate Claire Cummings. Margie Cummings as chair of our committee.
Do I have a second? Okay, any further nominations? Okay, then I'll make a motion that the nominations be closed.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I guess I will say we vote for Margie Cummings for chair. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Thank you. Okay, it's now in order to open the nominations for vice chair. Do I have a second to open the nominations? Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? I would like to make a motion to nominate Gail. She has been involved in real estate for a number of years and been on the planning board now for several years. And I think she would be a fine addition. Do I have a second? Okay, have a second. Are there any further nominations? Then I'll make a motion that the nominations be closed.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All right, all those in favor of Gail, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you, Gail, for the run. I look forward to working with you and all the board this coming year. All right. Okay, number 2, Town of New Shoreham, Flat 10, Lot 2, Fire number 6, Payne Road, public hearing on an application by Block Island Health Services for a development plan review for an addition to the medical center. This lot is located in the medical, which is the MC zone. Okay.
Hello,
Okay, would you identify yourself for?
my name is Charlie Weber. I'm the owner's project manager for this.
You?
Our architect and our engineer are not able to attend. I have a additional piece of information here. If you guys would like a copy of it. From the architect and the engineer.
I can
just-
I
We
share
could
it
share.
with Claire.
Then we can share. Yeah, we'll make it work. Actually, I think some of this material we got,
You do have some of it. This is all just,
okay.
this is
We
all
have a
put in
couple
kind of a
first pages.
tidy little package for you.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so there's been a lot of information going back and forth over the past couple of days for some questions from the town engineer and whatnot, so bear with me if I miss some stuff here and if you have questions. As I said before, I'm Charlie Weber. I'm testifying on behalf of Block Island Health Services. I'm the project manager retained by BIHS. I'll give you an overview of the changes to the project since prior approval on 9/8/21. Robert Ignari is still the architect and Tom Principe is still the civil engineer on this. Our proposal is to expand and upgrade the medical center, and it's been revised since the September 8th decision. The work on the project includes the same physical expansion and extensive renovation of the office and clinical components of the existing building facility. The new footprint of the medical center has not significantly changed from the September 21 design. However, we initially proposed the second floor expansion to add residential, and we've changed that to put a standalone residential building, which kind of changes the scope of work on the main building and allows us to phase in a safer, more efficient manner. The residential space is to accommodate 4 summer interns and 1 visiting physician. The new building is approximately the same overall floor area as allocated in the previous design. It includes the same 4 bedrooms with shared restrooms for the interns, a suite with its own restroom and separate entry for a visiting physician, and a common kitchen and living area. The new building is designed as a narrow structure oriented north to south and placed along the setback of the east property line between the Davidson House and the school. The location was selected to provide the least disturbance to the Davidson House, preserve the open space of the property to the north, and to take advantage of the redesigned back parking area between the structures. The site design in the revised scheme provides the original design of the front parking area, but expands the rear parking area by removing the existing utility building. A new smaller utility building is now proposed along with the same prior exposed exterior emergency generator. Both are located along the east setback line adjacent to the school. The result is a larger open parking area that is available for patients, staff, and on-site residents. The open parking area also allows for a small expansion of the medical center if considered in the future. The new plan provides for 28 parking spaces on the site prior to the plan. The prior plan provided for 26. The site currently has 23. The prior considerations proposed to the planning board that remain unchanged. In terms of all zoning work, all new work that is proposed, including the residential components, are a use by right and conform to the dimensional standards of the ordinance. Regarding the site design and improvements, we considered all structures and the entire property as one inclusive site campus as it was intended for in the MC zone. The current facility has reached obsolescence in terms of building systems, energy uses, technology, current code, and accessibility requirements. These have all been addressed. The physical improvements will allow advances in the level of care provided to patients, a big part of which, through improved organization, flow through the building and right sizing of the spaces within the facility. The medical center's need for temporary housing is being addressed as well. Many aspects of the town of New Shoreham's comprehensive plan are being addressed. Examples are promote a year-round economy and community, address need for seasonal workers, sustain the community in terms of health and welfare, reuse existing public infrastructure, foster a strong and inclusive sense of community, less dependence on fossil fuels and carbon-emitting products, increasing self-sufficiency of medical services, lessening the dependency on access to the mainland, make a wide range of treatments and services available, and increase the capability for the summer surge. There is in the scope of work, it's not being implemented right now, but there is a solar array that has been designed that we're still making a decision on. In the scope of work will be the Davidson House. There'll be some new exterior improvements on that as well as the landscaping around it. The site design has been reviewed and commented on by the municipal engineer, dated 2/6 by Jeremiah's office. Tom Principe's firm is in the process of addressing those comments, which I believe as of right now, most of them are from the last email that I got this afternoon. I believe they're all taken care of. We just got that letter a couple days ago, so it's been kind of tough trying to work through it in such a short period of time. But the soils data has been provided, the test hole location has been provided. The sewer and water connections for the residence hall will be added to the site plan. All utilities for the building will enter underground into the proposed basement. The water and drainage fixture units are the same as originally designed, just relocated to the proposed separate building. We anticipate the usage and volumes will be the same, but will be confirmed with the building engineers. There are no sewer or water connections to the utility building. The shed is heated slab on grade with an underground electric service. And the shed basically just houses the morgue equipment and some miscellaneous storage. And the last item on there is we would propose to pave up to the right-of-way line approximately 10 feet into the driveway instead of the 30 feet that they're asking for. The medical center has always had a gravel lot, and we're making a pretty good effort to try to keep it kind of the residential quiet feel that it has now. The layout for the medical center's clinical administrative spaces, overall footprint has remained essentially the same. Improvements related to the accessibility, new accessibility pathways and extensions of sidewalks. Improved additional parking and replacing of exterior lighting fixtures is also included. It goes on to, if you're concerned with the lot coverages and whatnot and building sizes, that's all there. If you'd like me to walk you through it, I can. And that goes for as well as the new residence building is on here at the end. So this proposal will still meet all the items of approval of the September 8th, 21 hearing. Or as follows, the uses related to this application will be permitted uses under section 322 for the MC zone. All dimensional standards of the zoning district will be met with the applicable standards of section 501 development plan of review. It will not cause unreasonable traffic congestion or unsafe conditions and will comply with the town standards for parking and access. The development will provide and maintain convenient and safe emergency vehicle access to the buildings and structures at all times and will conform with comments and recommendations of the rescue squad. The locations, design, and construction of the buildings, driveways, surface, water drainage systems, and their intended uses will be suitable to the soils of the property. The development will provide for adequate disposal of sewage, refuse, and other wastes. The development will continue to be serviced by municipal sanitary sewer and municipal water, which we are on the agenda for next week for the water. The development will not have an adverse impact on areas of critical environmental importance, such as habitats or species listed as endangered, threatened, or of special concern by the Rhode Island Natural Heritage Program. Plan considers and protects against of any degradation of surface of groundwater quality through stormwater management and soil erosion and sedimentation control measures. Proper soil erosion and sedimentation control measures as described in the town soil erosion and sediment control ordinance will be employed. Drainage calculations and engineering site plans were reviewed by town engineer Jim Jeremiah on February 6th of this year. And Principe Engineering is addressing the comments that they've received. The project is consistent with the 2016 New Shoreham Comprehensive Plan, specifically needs identified on page 9 through 13, that there still remains a long-term need to provide additional housing for medical center staff and a strong desire to increase telemedicine opportunities. The project supports the following policies listed in the comprehensive plan. Proactively plan for long-term use and maintenance of all town-owned buildings, support community health needs, including mental health, increase telemedicine opportunities, make health and safety residents and visitors of the island highest priority, and ensure municipal staffing needs are not compromised by lack of attainable housing. That's what I got.
Thank you. Questions?
I'm curious about something. Allison, would you be able to tell me if the structure that will now serve the staff, new staff or visiting staff, could that be counted towards our affordable housing stock in any way, shape, or form? Okay, so this is not a, okay.
Let's go. Is this the one that you're talking about is from February 6th? Okay, I've got one that says February 6th. I do not have one for today. I think that might be a very good idea.
I probably have it as well too, if you want me.
Yeah, that's, okay.
Yeah, and ask Jim because he might not have been able to hear. Jim, I'm sorry, my mic wasn't on, but the planning board would like kind of an update on your review. So you provided a letter and then it looks like you had some conversations with the applicant's engineer and they started to address some of your comments. So if you could provide us with a summary of your
Yes,
review and the status.
yes, as Chris indicated, I just about an hour ago, I received the updates or trying to address the comments I made in my February 6th letter. To that end, we did receive the drainage and the soil testings, and we're fine with the stormwater management as proposed on the plans. I do have some concerns or at least issues that should be addressed or at least identified by the planning board. The first one is the utility plans basically do not conform to the sewer and water standards. It's basically a line on paper showing going from point A to point B. That's fine from a conceptual standpoint, but we need to review detailed plans with showing elevations, showing connections, showing manholes and the separation between water, sewer, and fire protection in order to do a thorough review on those utility components. We also still suggest a 30-foot entrance and exit that to be paved. If you recall, the planning board has in the past always, or have in most recent reviews, required the development to pave. If you're going from a gravel roadway onto a paved roadway, to pave an appropriate apron to allow to prevent the gravel from running onto the roadway being a problem for the highway department. We have used 30 feet because it provides us a normal access from gravel to paved areas. And it's up to the planning board if they want to reduce that. And finally, the other comment is, as Chris indicated that he will be going to the commission for water allocation. I would suggest in doing so, he go for the sewer allocation at the same time. Right now, both allocations, as you know, we're looking towards, there's a shortage of allocation. This is a public facility, so I don't see any problem in it being granted. But I think it should be moving forward so that we can get this locked in the event that allocation becomes less and less through the years. So I did present those comments in my February 8th letter, which I just sent Jen just before the meeting, because, you know, of the timing.
Jim, just for the record, my name is Charlie, not Chris.
I'm sorry, Charlie.
Thank you.
I apologize.
All right. Thank you, Jim. That's great. Anybody have other questions for Jim before we move on? Okay. All right. Other questions for Charlie? Chris, you got anything? All right. Billy? No? No? Okay. I have
Just
just-
to add before I close, I just looked and I received the utilities plan just about 2 hours ago. That has it all marked up on it. I can forward that to Jen or
This-
whoever,
This one?
that one.
And I
I-
think this is, Jim is saying is that it's more conceptual and that to do a more detailed review of the utilities that would, you know, show manholes, for example, and the elevations of the.
I will pass that on. I mean, I'll pass that on to my people.
I have a couple of quick comments that
Okay.
you can pass along. I noticed the two different buildings are compatible as far as roof, black roof and but your windows are not necessarily compatible, so that might be something to take a look at. You mostly have 1/1 in the main medical building, but it's 6/6 in the residential. So you might look at seeing about making, since I think you're replacing windows anyway, might ask the architect to take a look at having the windows compatible. I know I'm a bit compulsive about things matching, but check it out with him and see how he feels about
I
it.
feel your pain.
I just felt there were too many pane windows in the residential building, so I would like to
Okay.
have you take another look at that. And if you're, you have it listed a conference room / bedroom in the residential building. But I noticed that if you're going to use it as a bedroom, there is no shower in that one. It's just a half bath. So if it's conference room, that's fine. If you think it might be used as a bedroom, see if we could redesign it in some way that can fit a shower in there.
Yeah, I believe that is a conference room because that's on the doctor's side of it.
Yeah, it
And
is.
there is
but
a
it
full
did
bath
say-
and
It
a-
did say conference or bedroom or / bedroom. And I thought if you do.
I think
think
that
it's
was
gonna be a
antici-
bedroom, it really needed to stick a shower in there. And better to do it now than try to refit it 2 years from now.
I think that
And,
was looked at as if the doctor came out and had a child that was staying with them, you know, they would stay in there as opposed to on the couch downstairs.
Yes. Particularly if it's a young kid.
But I will pass that along as well.
Anyway, it's just a thought.
Yep.
If you have to have a certain size conference room, maybe you can't reconfigure the bathroom. But if you have got enough space, that certainly would be something that I think it would be worth looking at.
Okay.
And the last thing is, I couldn't find it. I'm sure it's there somewhere. Where is the suite for the dentist?
In the new medical center,
Yes, I was looking for that.
I'd have to go back and look through the plans to
Okay,
tell
I
exactly,
didn't
but
see
it's there.
I'm sure it's
Yeah,
there.
I think it is on the lower
Is
floor.
it the basement? Okay, that's
Yeah.
probably how I missed it. I was looking for it and I found everything else as far as physical therapy, blah, blah, blah. But I didn't find the dentist suite. I thought, it's here, but I'd run out of time.
It's there.
Okay, so assure me it's there and
It's there.
I'll cross that off my list. All right, Allison, questions?
You touched upon this, but I just wanted to get more information on the emergency access. So I know this came up in your prior application, and there was some conversation about the stone wall and working with the rescue squad on making sure that
Making
was.
wider.
Yeah, do you know, did you meet with them? Did they drive?
We have
through,
met
or-
with
Yeah.
them and that's something that is more of a fluid situation that, we can change a stone wall pretty much at any time. It's not a huge deal to do. But we will make sure that they are completely
I
on
know-
board with whatever we're doing.
Okay, because I know they had commented on that last application, and so.
A little tight getting in there. I've driven an ambulance in there before.
Okay, so if there's ever a spot to make sure emergency
Absolutely.
access is
Yes.
convenient, well, yeah, I think the planning board would want to certainly confirm that for this site.
Yes. And the same way we need to discuss is the length of the paved section of the driveway. Jim Jeremy is recommending 30 feet.
I don't understand that myself. If we go 30 feet in, you're gonna
That's an
be
awful-
paving most of the parking lot in the front.
Even if you just pave the driveway section and not the parking area, that still goes quite a ways back.
Right.
Particularly since paved road becomes a dirt road shortly after it is.
It's much
passed.
further down the road now than it used to be.
Yes, that's
You know,
true.
when the town just paved and they only paved about 7 feet into everybody's driveway. So I don't know why they're asking us to do 30.
I would be happy with 10. How does that suit?
I think 10 is appropriate.
10 would be about where the parking, probably about the middle of the parking area. So I guess.
Even
what-
before that a little bit. 10 would be as you
Yeah.
pull in now where the stone wall ends, would be
Okay,
about 10
that's
feet.
10, because I was gonna say, wherever if it ends, for example, in the middle of the parking lot, then end it at the end of the parking lot, so we don't have this kind of funny looking bump because that the dirt's gonna wash around it.
Right.
So,
I mean, the concern was for the gravel not to
Wash into the
wash
street.
in the street, so there's gotta be, you could mitigate that without 30 feet of pavement.
Yes, I believe so too.
So I think that's the
It
goal.
would take an awful lot of water to move gravel, even
Yeah.
10 feet.
I
But
mean,
I guess that should be the point in.
yeah, and I believe in most of the ones that we have approved in the past, it's been 10 feet.
Yeah.
And we understand, we've talked to Mike Shea, we understand why it's necessary for road maintenance and cleanup and so forth. So But I think we would be willing to go with the 10 feet.
Okay.
And having it, and if you need 12 feet to get to an end or something, do it so it's logical and it looks,
Common sense.
yeah. Common sense is a very good word, thank you. Okay, Jen, what is our next steps?
Seeking any public comment,
Okay,
public hearing, and then after you're finished with all the questions and comments, we decide whether or not public hearing open or closed.
all right. So do I have any questions or comments from the audience? No? Okay. Ray, anything else you want to add?
Just that I've had conversations with Tracy Fredericks, captain of the rescue squad, and assured her that, and also with Bob Ignardi, the architect, and that we have, had we not planned this big, building project, this would have been taken care of a year ago. And I have cleaned the area where the, ambulance has a little problem, but it's still a stone wall. It needs to be moved, and the architect said he'd like to just move it and we begin construction. It's going to be moved back about 10 to 12 feet.
Okay, yeah, that makes
Make it
sense.
A lot more easy, a lot easier for the ambulance to back in where it needs to.
Is that reflected on the site plans?
Should be, but if you read the things you read about it, I don't.
Yeah.
I don't have much brains, but,
Yeah, it's okay, because I see two stone wall. It says relocated stone wall.
It is on the site plan.
This section. Is it this, just from here to here? This,
Over here. This is where the ambulance comes in and backs in. So this stone wall is here now.
Yeah.
It's gonna be here.
over here, it says relocate stone wall. This is where it's gonna be moved to?
Yeah,
Removed from
this is
here?
on the other side of the property. Ambulance, this is the emergency entrance where the ambulance comes in here.
Uh-huh.
This is where the stone wall is now. That's where it's gonna be.
Any other questions or comments?
The generator, exterior generator, was there some like thought about having it enclosed again to extend the life of it?
It will have a cover, you know.
It will be
Yeah,
covered?
it will be on its own, you know, if we go with a, whatever brand it is, you know, they have the enclosures that they come in. It will be, whether it's steel or composite, that's yet to be determined because of the size of it. But it will be in an enclosure. Whether it's a Kohler or a Cat, you know, they all have different options as to what sort of an enclosure you can have. I myself would like to see a composite one because they don't rust. But not all manufacturers make those.
One more chance for comments before I close the hearing?
Do you want to, is there any additional material that you need or? before
What's my only
close-
question is
Yeah, I can hold the hearing open for a month. Is that going to, I want to make sure that that's not going to mess up your time schedule for getting stuff approved. If we hold it and wait till we get the last bit of material, which we have not received as far as the sewer.
The utilities.
Detailed plans.
No, that's- I mean,
talking about the
you guys-
drainage plans?
No, where the utilities enter the,
Oh,
It's
Jim
number
requested
the
utilities.
sewer Allocation for the proposed residential hall and utility building must be obtained before the approval can be given for that phase of the project.
Can't we just give conditional approval?
We could,
You can either leave the public hearing open or close it. So if they're gonna submit any new material, any plans, anything like that, then you would want to leave it open. Or you could close it and
it can be part of your decision where they have to submit it, but then you only.
Administrative review, like
Right, so-
engineer signs off, but you wouldn't weigh in at that point.
I'm not weighing in on drainage plans or utilities.
No.
The
That's
drainage
why I'm
plans are
asking.
done.
I
it's
mean,
just-
that's
yeah, it's just
Jim's
utilities.
job.
Right. we could be
I'm
like-
not gonna argue with anything like that. So if anybody else is, then keep it open, but I'm not.
No, I don't think, any of us are.
'Cause that's all that we've addressed everything else.
I think
Jim
everything
brought
else
up.
we could address or put in as a condition. For example, I would like them to, as a condition, to look at making the windows match. I won't make it a requirement, but I certainly think that would be a condition.
Bob Ignari is texting me as I just looked at my phone kept going off. I have 9 texts from him. And he says that he will address that.
Okay, Don, thank you very much.
And Marcy, for parking, for zoning compliance, I mean, they're meeting the setback, the one in the, off the side is 5 feet of total. Very, higher than me. So there was no, I didn't have any issues.
Okay. Then I think what I'm hearing is I'm going to make a motion that the meeting be, the hearing be closed. One last chance for any comments before I close it. Okay, I will make a motion that the hearing be closed. Do I have a second? All right, social seconds. All those in favor say aye. Anyone opposed? All right. As far as so approval, I take it we all are approving with just a couple of conditions.
And you can either, you could put it on the agenda for next month and have a written decision, because this is the only review that.
Yeah,
this
As
project
I was going to
will
say, we would need the written decision to approve next month. And we've mentioned 2 conditions, which we will, I'm sure Allison has it down, but the windows and the utility, additional information on that. And make a note that we've agreed that the entrance can be paved 10 feet. Any other conditions that we want to make sure Allison puts in her decision, draft decision?
The allocation, they should put that in there too.
Sewer and water.
Oh, yeah, that's right, pending, exactly, thank you. A pending allocation for a sewer and water connection.
That's next week, is it, Charlie?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can look at my calendar and tell you exactly when it is.
Monday.
Monday, Jim said.
Monday at 4 o'clock. Yes.
Monday at 4, okay. That will give you, Allison, plenty of time to know, and we can always take that condition off if it's taken care of.
Okay.
When she's doing the
Okay.
draft, because we will approve the draft next month. And we can make any additions or corrections at that point. Okay, one last chance for any other questions for Charlie? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. You Make a good pitch hitter. Thank you.
Have a great night.
Thank you. You
Marty,
too.
did you vote?
No, I did not. We voted on everything else.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you take
Uh,
closing the public hearing.
we did vote on closing the public hearing.
Okay. That's all. Okay.
Okay, and we'll vote on the draft language next month. So I think I'm okay.
You're okay.
Okay, good. I always like when I'm okay. Right. All right. Gorab, as I mentioned earlier, will be continued next month. So we're now down to Flowering Spade. All right. Gail has to recuse herself. This is number 5 and 6.
I do as well.
Okay, oh, I'm sorry, Bill, I did not know that, okay. Okay, so you both are recused. Flowering Spade, Horn Neck Road, continuing of a public hearing for a development plan review for an application for special use permit under section 406 to construct a single-family dwelling, accessory dwelling to be used as a game room and storage, an accessory structure to be used for storage, and a fitness studio. The single-family dwelling exceeds the limit set forth in section 306E. Planning Board conditional approval for an administrative subdivision of lots 31-1 and 32-2. All right. Thank you.
Hi, good afternoon. Nice to see you all again.
Thank you. Scott, will you identify yourself? You probably
This
did.
is Scott Spear with Bush and Kavanaugh. I'm the attorney for the applicant. And by way of refresher, we were here at the last meeting. There was a little bit of a technical snafu that all got ironed out satisfactorily the way I expected it to. The groups that did not get notice have waived the requirement that they get notice. And I have an email that I sent to Jen Brady to let her know that that was the case. But I do have the email from Joe Priestley as well to put into the record to clarify that. And out of an abundance of caution, as I tend to be overcautious, I sent them certified mail as well to notify them of this meeting. And we will make sure that at all other meetings in the town, they get notice as well. So I have prepared for you, if you would like me to spend a little time giving you a quick overview of the project and the issues that we discussed last night that I think are most germane to you eventually deliberating on this. I thought it would be a good thing to just run through that list for you, if I may. So I did point out that the town engineer is found everything to be in conformance with town regulations. I had several witnesses who testified to all of the development review, performance review standards. The engineers and the witnesses are here this evening if you have questions for them.
Thank you all for coming back.
And to run through the issues, we were able to satisfy the requirement that the building site be located in such a way to minimize the impact on the view shed. It's recessive. It's not set up on a hill. It was deliberately tucked into a location on the property to make it recessive. The greater than 3,000 square foot footprint is mitigated by the fact that it's a one-story home. It's down low. The height is actually lower than the height limitation of the zoning ordinance. It's designed to be compatible with the surrounding homes and the context of the town. The site description calls for minimal disturbance to the site. We've deliberately tried to protect areas from being disturbed through the construction process. The stone walls, which are so important, will all be preserved except for one that needs to be relocated, and the applicant has agreed to relocate that. The screening around the property to keep it shielded from views from the neighboring areas and the pathway, the nature pathway has been robustly treated with native species to make sure that it is concealed as much as possible. There's no garage attached to the building, so we didn't have to deal with that standard. All of the cladding around the building is all natural. There's no paint. The house will change color with the season, so it blends in more naturally with the environment. All low maintenance. The sense of scale of the buildings is correct for the site. It's all low profile, a mix of buildings separated to space things out comfortably. There's no fossil fuel heat. It's a very environmentally sensitive house. We talked about heat pumps. All of the electrical equipment will be underground, including air conditioning, condensers which aren't needed, no generators needed because it's got solar and batteries for situations where there's a power outage. The flat roofs that are designed to connect the buildings together, we confirm that they comply with zoning, and we know that those are natural. They've got plants on them, so they'll help also filter storm water. The rain situation, we've got a rain garden set up, even when one's even necessary. It's a little bit of an over redundance to protect stormwater runoff, and all of that will be contained all site. We have dark sky lighting. I said underground utilities, the battery issue and solar for emergencies we talked about. The Conservation Commission unanimously was in favor of the project. They found everything to be in good shape. They applauded the professionals, and I applaud them as well for the great job that they've done. We had someone testify, Mr. Rabbit, who hears again today. There's no impact on the natural habitat. He did a very, very thorough analysis of the entire area. We're all outside the DEM buffers, so there's no impacts on the wetlands. We have invasive species removal being taken care of. We're using all low impact, eco-friendly grass that doesn't need a lot of water. A gravel driveway. You heard testimony from the landscape designer that the applicant wants this to look like something that's been there for a long, long time. You drive in, you park right on the grass. There's no extreme landscaping taking place. It's restraint on landscaping to make it look very natural. The drainage analysis that was completed was approved. The nitrate loading analysis has been submitted, and the town engineer is fine with that. Soil erosion control plan is all set. We have safe access for emergency vehicles. And in terms of the comprehensive plan issues, we're showing responsible stewardship for the natural and cultural resources. It's compatible in style and scale with the island's traditionally built environment. Stone walls protected, invasive species have been identified. protections being made to protect the scenic landscape. It complies with zoning, stormwater pollution control. The proposal integrated into existing pattern of fields, walls, ponds, and wetlands, and it promotes high quality and appropriate design and control for the environment. So those are all of the standards that we talked about, and I thought I'd just run through them again. And if you have any questions, the witnesses are here to answer any questions you may have.
Wonderful. Thank you very much. Questions?
First of all, I was so impressed with this whole proposal. I have absolutely no concern anywhere. I am curious, because I'm always curious. Is the applicant aware of his or her vulnerability regarding sea level rise storm surge?
Yes.
'Cause I thought you mentioned it, but I couldn't
Yeah,
remember.
they are, and that's something that everyone discusses when they get into this type of a realm, constructing a home like this. But they have done the investigation that's necessary, and the property is well out of range for any type of damage from stormwater or sea level rise, I should say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you happen to know if they use the RI storm tools?
Scott, do you know whether you ran that model for them?
So are you talking about the storm use?
Yeah.
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 So my name is Scott Rabideau. I was the coastal and freshwater wetland biologist who testified. We haven't done that, but we will need to do that.
Okay.
You know, as part of it, we are well above.
I just
anything-
want you to know how safe or unsafe you are.
So CRMC has their modeling for, sea level rise in a number of years.
Yeah.
Out,
Yeah.
and we're well above I think we did it for 30 and 100 years. And we're outside that anticipated sea level
Okay,
rise
so you're-
for that.
okay.
But the storm tools model speaks to the storms on top of the sea level.
Yes.
And we didn't do that, but we can look at that.
I'm not suggesting we require it, but for your own benefit, it would be good.
Chris, questions?
They were answered last week or
Okay.
last meeting.
Claire, any questions? Allison? Jen? No, I don't have any either. I think you all did a superb job in explaining your various areas of expertise, and thank you very much for coming back again. Scott, or anything else you want to say?
No, I think that's it. I'm done. Scott, you have anything to say? Very good.
Very good.
Are there any questions from the audience? Okay, hearing none, then I'll make a motion that the hearing be closed. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, so she's second. One last chance. Going once, going twice. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Yay. You opposed? Okay, motion carries. Congratulations. Okay.
And Margie, same thing, you can talk about some findings that you might want to visit. So
Okay.
Alice can draft it.
We usually have a section for special use permit for construction for dwelling. We have it listed here on the last page of the memo. Scott and his group have very carefully gone through and answered pretty much all these, but I will run through them again just to make sure that you don't have any questions or comments. The proposed residential structure is cited so as to minimize impact on view shed, and including where possible below the crest of the hill or ridge line and away from center of the fields. The design that I looked at, he said very carefully that they have got had an impact on view sheds. So I don't see that number one is a problem. Number two, the proposed residential structure is designed and cited so as to be compatible with the historic and cultural setting, particularly in relationship to nearby notable historic structures. Well, there aren't really any historic or nearby structures, but yes, I think you all have done that. So I don't have a problem with your citing. Anybody have comments?
No.
All right. Three, the area of site disturbance and alteration of natural grade are the minimum necessary for construction of the building. I think you just mentioned that.
Right.
So I don't think that's a problem. All existing stone walls on the site are preserved or reconstructed as part of the site plan, which you have already stated in your comments. Five, screening of the proposed building is achieved by using existing mature vegetation with additional plantings as required by the planning board. I have to say, I thought the site plan for the landscaping was absolutely fine. I think it will be very successful. So again, I have no questions with that. Okay. Number 6, attached garages are located below the first grade level or attached to a breezeway so as not to add the dwelling's bulk and are oriented so that the front is not visible from a town or state road, i.e. designed with the side or rear entrance in relation to the dwelling. I think your garage is separated, your screening will be fine.
Right.
Anybody else comments?
Let's make a motion. Right. You're not here next month.
Okay.
Unless Mary's here.
She missed tonight, so why don't I make a motion that we send a favorable advisory? And I think you've got enough information to write.
Yeah, yes,
Okay,
yes.
so, all right, I'll make a
Testimony
motion to
and
send a
from here.
favorable advisory
Second.
and social seconds. Any other comments or questions? Last chance.
Last comment would be any conditions. I recall the Conservation Commission said something about fertilizer that was in your public hearing. So that's your
Yeah,
thought?
okay, put that as a comment. Good call. Anything else, Allison, that we want to list as a condition? I don't have any on my notes.
I also had noted the recording of the utility access easements in the administrative subdivision.
Oh, that might,
I remember.
oh, okay. Yeah, that's a good point. So the subdivision was conditional, so, right, on your special use permit on the approval of this.
So they still have to
So
go.
part
back
of
to-
this approval is, recording the subdivision. So we can mention that in the decision, but Claire, you bring up about access. So I mean, have we spoke about, well, the hearing is closed, but the access, what was your question specifically about?
Whether
Mhm.
those had been recorded.
Oh, okay,
That needs to be a condition of.
We did present.
easements,
We did
yeah.
present the easement to the town engineer so that he has them and approved them, but they have to be recorded eventually once we get the subdivision done.
Okay, so good, Claire, we'll put that as a condition
Are
about
you-
the easements, and I'll make sure it's been, signed off on.
Yeah, I just
Yeah.
want to be clear that, are you recording the subdivision prior to receiving the zoning board approval?
No.
Right, okay, so if we put that in there as a condition, yeah.
It's not a condition of approval, it's just more that that's a step that needs to be
Taken.
taken
Any other conditions?
before recording.
All right. All those in favor of sending a favorable advisory, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries. Good, congratulations. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Excellent
And
job.
thank you for coming back again. Good to see you. Come back and visit us in the summer when the weather is really nice, although actually we gave you a lovely day today. It's for February, this is amazing, guys. All right.
What's next?
Limited zoning. I'm just gonna give a, we'll do that, and I'll just give a second for them to get organized and get out and enjoy their trip. Okay. All right, number 7, amendment to the zoning ordinance, section 111A 15.
Oh, wait, can I interrupt?
You certainly may.
Go back to.
Oh, yes, I certainly will. I would make a motion that Goriab be, public hearing be postponed at their request continued at their request until March 8th at 4 o'clock. Do I have a second?
Second.
Okay. Claire seconds, and All those in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Okay, now I will go back to James. Uh, Okay, amendment to zoning ordinance, section 111A 15, section 311D, and section 312D. Discuss and act on a request to provide the town council with findings and a recommendation for proposed amendment by Gary Pollard to zoning ordinance section regarding game room. Planning board has 45 days in which to respond. Okay, Gary, you want to come and explain what you would like changed and why?
Hi, everybody. Gary Pollard,
Okay, good.
owner of the Empire Theater, and we did have a game room for about 10 years and decided to close it because it wasn't making as much as we thought it was going to make, and we could basically get the same amount for rent as the game room was producing for revenue. But fast forwarding, that was 15 years ago. I think I gave up the license. Now that movies are no longer kind of, people are not going to movie theaters, I wanted to put a game room again in the theater and try to diversify the use of the building. And presently, it can't be done under the ban on arcades the town has.
Do you know why? Because I'm curious, why the game rooms were listed as a general prohibition?
I was going to ask everybody here the same
I have
question.
no idea.
I don't think anybody does. Well, my guess is, so I Googled in various phrases banning arcades. And the only thing that came up was 2012, Smithfield, some town in near the coast of the Cape, not the Cape proper, the southern Mass, ended a 32-year ban they had on arcades. And that was in 2012. Nothing else came up. I think it's safe to say we're the only town in the country that has a ban on arcades.
I'd just like to know the background of why they felt it was necessary to ban.
I think
game
that
rooms, 'cause I'm
I
sure
have
the
a-
town council is going to ask you this question when you get before them soon.
Well, I think
Oh,
it's, I'm not sure, but I remember many years ago when Champlin's had the game room in the, what's the building called where they used to have the shows
It's
and
the main
stuff?
building where it shows, I know, I used to drop off my kids as teenagers there.
So it was kind of
Yes,
in
I
the
remember
back,
that clearly.
and I remember at the very back, there was a place kids hung out and smoked cigarettes. I can only think, that they think kids will turn into juvenile delinquents.
Yeah, but
The
they
reason
were-
the town in Mass,
They were game rooms elsewhere in town, and those have also gone.
so one by one, because it's not that lucrative, it's not like a liquor license, no one's giving up liquor license, but myself and the 4 other game rooms that were grandfathered in before the prohibition, one by one have given up their licenses because they're putting the space to more lucrative use. Champlin's was the last one to give it up. They didn't have to. The new owners decided they would, I don't know what's in there now, maybe a boutique, but their game room was the last one to go. So now there's none.
So let me just read from June 19, 2019, Town Council meeting. Receive and act on game license application. Is that what we're talking about? Like a game license, right?
Yeah, right now it's prohibited.
So it's not, because in 2019 and 2020, which isn't 10 years ago, I'm trying to find out why it was prohibited. The question was just asked, and I'm trying to find out why it's been approved 2 years ago for Aldo's, Champlin's, Trader Vic's, Club Soda,
They were grandfathered in.
Neptune. So all those still have.
Well, I don't think they currently, as of last summer, had.
Yellow
Well,
Cans has one.
Yeah, exactly. Well, any,
we're still
any,
granting them
any establishment is allowed to have up to 2 games. So maybe that's what you're seeing.
Well, no, the definition for gaming for the game room is 3 or more. That's why you need a license. I don't have any, honestly, I don't have feelings either. Like what, I don't know why they were prohibited to begin with.
Exactly.
So I don't have any feelings either way, unless someone could tell me why they were prohibited to begin with.
What I read in my research of this town in Massachusetts, that banned it, one of the reasons is that they thought it would tarnish the reputation of a quaint New England town by having a game room, an arcade.
And I've been thinking about this and asking a lot of different people about what their thoughts are in game rooms. And I think everyone thinks having one is fun. It's a great thing for kids to do. The kids used to really enjoy going to Champlin's and going to that game room. But if everyone then turned a section of their Old Harbor property into a game room, that's where you might see some change. But if it's all indoors, you don't see the change. So can we require that game rooms are established only indoors?
Well,
and
the
not out on
games,
Decks of,
the games
outside
have to
bars
be
or-
indoors. They can't be out.
Right.
They're not designed
but
to
a lot of
be.
outdoor bar areas have covers,
But
not,
nonetheless, they still wouldn't put a game out there that's
Outside.
very sensitive to.
yeah.
Now
You
they're
can certainly,
all electronic and sensitive to salt air. and
Mhm.
Gail, that could
They're
be-
even hard to, I mean, I would not recommended indoors here.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
I don't see anything being renewed since 2020. Has anything been renewed since, or like for Aldo's or for Trader Vic's?
No, Aldo's no longer has a game room.
So, I mean, there was, as I just read, at least 4 2 years ago. Now there's none. So
And I'd
if
like,
anybody has any strong feelings about it, you can certainly put forward to the town council. I mean, there was, I don't know again why they were banned, but say, all right, let the council approve, because this is a license approval. You know, pick a number. I don't care if it's 1, 2, or 3, 4,
Mhm.
5, or 6.
Mhm.
Let them decide, and they could probably put the stipulations on indoors, like you said, Gail.
Mhm.
We could also put a limit on the number that could be had under one license.
well, listen, if you want to, this is a thing that people are giving up. They're not, no one's lining up to open up another game room in town. I happen to have excess space, one of the few places
Yeah.
that
I
now,
agree,
because
yeah.
no one's coming to movies, I have all this space inside. I want to fill it with something that can bring some revenue in and still show movies at night, which this will allow.
The only suggestion I would have, I don't have a strong feeling one way or the other. My guess is that people don't want to hear it. So yes, so it's indoors, but there might be some soundproofing that you might want to think about.
You could turn the sound down.
It doesn't make enough noise to leave this building. And my movies make a lot more noise at night and nobody complains.
Okay.
Good point.
So Gary, how many were you thinking
And-
about putting in?
As many as we can fit, frankly. So, I mean, but that's,
That may
right
be-
now, we're talking about 12 to 15.
I'm
And
thinking, we might want to limit the number, because
why?
because there's always going to be somebody who wants to push the envelope, and maybe 10 would be great, and they'll put in 25, and that will drive all the neighbors up and down the block crazy.
Why though? You can't hear it, the sound outside of the building.
Well, sound does carry, and if you
But-
have windows open in the winter, in the summertime.
Okay, well, listen, let me point something out. For when the prohibition was passed, there were 4 and mine made 5 game rooms open for, I don't know, 20, 30 plus years. Did any ambulance have to be sent there, or fire trucks or police to break fights up ever,
I have no idea.
or noise complaints?
Gary,
No.
we're
on
making
your
a
side.
recommendation.
If-
We're talking
So,
about making a
I'm just- it's
recommendation
just-
to the town
right.
council without any information on why they were banned. So the fact that we're just being abundantly cautious isn't a bad thing, because right now you have consensus, sounds like, to make a recommendation to the town council of, yeah, consider making I'm not gonna put any number on it. That's not in my purview. That's the town council's purview. They
Well-
issue the licenses. But
I don't
like,
know why there would be a number on the license.
because I could see you
Because I
putting
can
30
see
in there.
somebody making the
Right.
mistake of pushing it.
And why, what would be the problem if I did have 30?
Because it would be too
I don't know.
noisy. I don't know, but
But why are you saying it's sooner, when the bars, what, I don't get it. The bars are much noisier and,
True
and I
outdoor
mean, it's like,
entertainment.
I don't get it. It's
Yeah.
crazy.
But
That's a-
I'm
that
thinking-
You should be thanking me for opening up this game room for kids to do something. You keep saying there's nothing for teenagers to do here,
I
and I'm
understand.
trying to
I
open
want
something for them.
separation. I doesn't tell you no. So
I don't imagine they would, or I didn't
which
expect
is
you
why
to,
I'm thinking about
I didn't expect to have a fight over this, frankly. You know, I thought it would be a
Well,
done
as
deal.
Chris mentioned, we're not trying to fight, we're trying to
Well,
just.
by putting a limit on the
think-
number of games, it is.
Well,
We're
we're
just
just not,
thinking this through.
But it
It's-
doesn't make
it's a process.
noise beyond the building, especially when you consider all the bars in town with
I
loud
think
music.
We're all just thinking out loud because this is the first time we've actually
Yeah.
really entertained the idea.
And it's
Well,
actually our job.
before, but
Adding-
yes, but
Yeah, yeah.
before the meeting, you
And-
you knew this was coming up. You had time to think
This
about
is
it.
also not personal against you. This is an ordinance for the
I
entire town,
understand.
so
It's
it's
for the
not,
island.
we have
I
to, we have
understand.
to plan for
And I'm not,
anyone coming for this.
May I
this is
suggest
more the
something?
merrier. If everyone wants to open a game room, that's great. Anyone else? But
Rather
people are
than,
not gonna line up to get a game room license.
So
I'm
the-
telling you.
Can I
There-
make a suggestion?
It's a dying
2012
business.
Packer, according to these minutes.
Why do you
had to
think
change-
everyone that had a license gave theirs up?
planning board members to speak. Sosha and Chris want to speak. Chris, what were you just saying?
I said 2012, there was proposed, and it doesn't give me what they were, but if you want to look it up, is proposed ordinance changes to electronic game and gaming regulations. And Packer apparently drafted some changes to the zoning and general ordinance. So there might be a reason why those changes were made.
I would like to recommend that instead of making a recommendation to the town council, we can ask the town council to explore the option. So it's a recommendation without prejudice.
We could also say that we like it, that we might feel there may be some regulatory regulations that just to be on the safe side that should be put in place to safeguard the town. I know you don't want to hear that, but that's one of the things that may get it. passed
Whatever.
through. And that's why I asked you how many you want. We could. make
If there's a limit
recommendation.
on the number, I'm just not gonna do it, frankly.
Well, I'm saying we could make a recommendation of no more than 15, which is probably
And-
what you were going to put in anyway,
Well,
or less. And
or more. I don't know,
Yeah.
you know, what the future holds. If movies completely, if movie theaters are completely become a dead business, I can't do anything with the theater at night, I will put more games in, if that's the case.
There was no, the ordinance way I read before, it was no limit. It was just more than 3, you needed a license.
Yes, I mean, when the other game rooms were open, there was no limit on how many they had.
I don't know whether that's true or not. I know.
It
we had to
is,
have
because
a
I
license.
had a
Yeah.
game room and this is how it worked.
I know, but you were grandfathered in, so
I wasn't.
you were not grandfathered in?
I got my license on some technical error that the building official made.
Oh, okay,
Yes, it was a fluke that I even got it.
all right.
The prohibition was in place when I applied, and my philosophy in life is it never hurts to ask. I asked and I got it, surprisingly, which was a good thing, I think, for not just me. Like I say, it's not the most lucrative thing. If I didn't have excess space, I wouldn't even be pursuing this. Nobody in town, or even maybe beyond town, you know, the New Harbor, is going to want a game room. I can't guarantee it. Oh, by the way, do you decide on the fee for the licenses, or
No,
who
that's the town
decides that?
council. Yeah,
because
that's-
I'm going to ask for, frankly, a reduction in the
I
license.
should say, when you go before the town council, be prepared for them to want to know why you want the game room, what kind of a limit you think would be appropriate, because I'm sure they will ask you these kinds of questions. So it's
No
kind of
limit.
trial run when you're working with us. You can do your practice here, and then you're actually.
I'm not, there anything else to add when I go there, frankly, than I've said here. I didn't even expect to have to say anything, frankly. It's like a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want a game room?
We've learned that if you make changes to ordinances, you sometimes live to regret them. So we are very careful.
I'm
about
certain,
changes.
I'm sure that's the tricky thing, and I understand your concerns, but I think there's no secret reason that we're not aware of why they were banned in the first place. I think the town thought teenagers would become juvenile delinquents by hanging out in the game room. Now you think people would love for teenagers to get together in a social place instead of at home or on their phones playing games, you know, by themselves. This is like a throwback to try and get people together in one place
Yeah.
and
And-
socialize.
As I said at the very beginning, when Champlain's had it, I used to drop my kids and all their friends off. And I thought it was a great idea. But I also want to make sure that we do not do damage to the town because we allow too many in one space. So we want to
But
find a nice,
again,
happy
I
balance.
don't know how many times I have to say
Margie.
this, that they don't make enough
Yeah.
noise to leave the space.
Well, I don't believe you're air conditioned, are you?
No, we have the windows open.
Okay, so what sound does carry?
But the movies make so much more noise than the arcade will ever make. And no
Okay.
one's like making an issue. Should I not show
We're gonna get the
movies?
same questions, I'm sure from town council, so think
Okay,
about your answer.
well, but didn't I answer your question? We still seem to think it's a problem, the noise.
I think it could be a problem, yes. I think sometimes when.
But
movies
why?
are-
Like, how would it be louder than the movies are right now?
if
And
there's
bands
sirens
that play.
and Whistles and that kind of noise, yes, I think it could be.
Have you been to an action movie lately?
No, I'm not. a
They're
movie-
wall to wall
You know I'm not a
crashes.
movie goer 'cause I'm never there.
They're wall to wall crashes, explosions, all sorts of loud sounds.
Okay. Any
So
other
I
comments
just,
before We make a recommendation,
Yeah,
okay? Go ahead, Chris.
so again, there were 2012 licenses were approved with numbers. Aldo's had 1, Ballard's had 6, Nick's had 4, Champlin's had 20, Upsota had 4, Empire had 20, McGovern's had 4, National Hotel had 6, and the Neptune had 3.
may I just say something?
Yes, you may.
This is how it worked. I don't know if you want to believe me, but every year, depending on how many games, someone from town hall came, once I was opened up and all the games were installed, and I believe this happened at all the other arcades, somebody from town hall came to just verify how many games we had, because the fee, the license fee is per game.
Mhm.
And there was no limit, but they just counted how many you had. That's why there's a big fluctuation there. Some places voluntarily wanted 4, some wanted 20.
Mhm.
And there was no limit. 20 was not the limit.
Okay.
Your limit was how many you could fit typically.
I'm just saying the licenses were approved with a number,
Yeah, well, I don't know if that's the case, frankly, if they were approved.
but it says it here in the minutes.
Okay,
They were
well,
approved with a number.
yeah, but every year when I had the game room, I didn't come here for any kind of renewal process. Like I said, at the beginning of this summer, opening up, before opening officially, after someone brings the games over every spring, pre-summer, into all the arcades, this is how it works. Same guy supplied all of us. And then someone from town hall came and counted to verify how many we had, and we got charged, per game.
Okay.
That license fee, I think it was $50.
We're gonna leave the number up to town council anyway.
Yes.
I don't-
That's
we don't
fine.
set those, you know,
No.
so that's fine. Chris, you got an idea? Oh, Thank you.
I have one more recommendation. And maybe this is just me, but I was even confused about exactly what a game room constituted. So having a definition of what a game room as you envision it, I would find that helpful. I feel like we're talking about arcade games, but
Well,
what kind of
I
games are
guess
we
if I've
talking
been,
about? I just.
if I've been
for
saying game room,
clarification.
I should be using the word arcade because apparently that's the more common name. I don't
would
know
use
why
it.
I've been using game room myself for a long time, but
I
arcade is,
think
I
it would be
guess.
good to clarify that in
So,
the
well,
application.
if I say arcade, does that clarify it?
I think if
So-
council
Or-
approves a license, it should be an arcade license, not a game, like, because a game room license and other.
Well, as I said,
Generic, yeah.
maybe, it's,
That's
so-
nothing to do with
I
you.
look at it, those words are synonymous, but listen, I can use the word arcade if it's.
I had the
They're not
question, I had the
exclusive.
same question as you, because when I saw the amendment, my first question was, oh, there should be a definition to go along with it, but it is currently in the zoning ordinance, there is a definition, an existing definition of game rooms in there. There were two, so.
Yes,
um,
you're right.
You shared those with us.
Yeah.
So, you know, if that's something to kind of, as you, the council considers that amendment, having that definition handy, you know, but you can have that in your recommendation as to if you feel like arcade versus game room is more, clarifies it or more
I think-
defines it better. Yeah.
Yeah.
Certainly needs to be, yeah,
The only-
there has to be a definition. There is one in there and already.
I found the only
in the
issue
zoning
with that
ordinance.
definition though was that it stated, and maybe correct me if I'm wrong, it stated that that was going to be the principal form of income for the business, which we wouldn't want to have to regulate
Does
that,
anyone have
I
that
don't think.
printed out? If you want,
I thought I had it printed out, but I didn't. It must have been in my email.
I can try to pull it
There
up.
was some reference to principal for income of the business, which I found to probably not be necessary.
I don't remember that, but maybe it is there.
Okay, so the current definition in the zoning ordinance for a game room is a public place, building, or room where 3 or more gaming devices, machines, or apparatuses, including but not limited to pinball machines, computer gaming devices, electronic gaming devices, and video game machines are kept for the use and entertainment of the public, and where public use of the devices, machines, or apparatuses for a fee is the principal source of income. So that's the definition in the zoning ordinance in section 202. There's also a definition of gaming device as well. So maybe something, you know, I don't know if you looked at that when you were
I now
crafting your.
remember. I didn't
yeah.
remember that little part about being the only,
No,
Revenue
principal,
source?
principal
source.
so that's saying it has to be the principal source in that
But we-
definition?
Either that or that the games are, well, it still says principal, which surprised me.
Yeah, I didn't even catch that, frankly.
Yeah, I missed that too.
Doesn't make sense when you look at
Right.
Right.
past licenses.
It doesn't make it all, and it's not going to be a principal source of income.
So
Would
that
be-
might be
be
something
what-
that the
there
town
would
wants to
be
consider amending as
I
well.
hope it's not.
It's a source of income is what I would use.
Just strike the word principal, maybe.
Is
Where is the source of
a
income?
source of.
Indicating that you could have other sources besides that is
In your business.
in the business. Because I see this is kind of a sideline, not a.
Yes,
major-
well, I hope it's not going to be the primary. I won't be able to survive just
You
that.
never know, it could be a total success today.
In the process of Googling, the ban on arcades, everything that, all these articles about, why are arcades dying? Why aren't there any more?
Hmm.
They're just not that lucrative. With
Alex?
PlayStation, but you can do it home now.
Well, I mean, you can play
So-
games on your own phone. so
Exactly, that's-
I think that's.
So
where
that's
some of the
that's
difference is.
what's one of the main reasons that game rooms have lost favor.
I
Oh,
say
by
we
the
give
way,
a
also-
recommendation to the town council saying they, we would like them to consider, having a game room, and you can put in parentheses arcade, just so, and that they consider any appropriate regulations, to be put in place when issuing the license. That will leave it sufficiently vague that the town council can adjust the numbers up or down based on your conversation with them.
Okay.
and their
Sounds great.
previous view of how successful or unsuccessful these
And-
game rooms were.
And drop the word principal in,
Yes.
principal. And then,
So within your recommendation, we'll include the definitions, just so
Defini-
everyone, that's part of the record
Yeah.
to be clear, and background information for the council, and just, we can raise that if the planning board would like to.
is it possible for the planning board to be neutral on something? In other words, we're saying, I'm saying town council, would you consider looking at this option or proposal? I'm neutral.
I mean, I think, well, they asked you to consider it and give a recommendation, so I think maybe, why don't the planning board poll, who feels, I don't know, we have heard from
Absent of the-
everyone, a
Absent
positive.
of a reason why it was
Yeah.
taken out as a license, like why, absent of that, there's nothing really they existed in 2020. They don't exist now. I don't have an issue with it because they were fine in 2020. There were 4 licenses or 5 licenses, so that
Mhm.
tells
Right,
me
well,
there wasn't a
anyone
ban
is-
of.
Anyone
Can I
establishing,
finish, Gary, please, for the love of God, can I finish? There wasn't a ban on them, right? They weren't told to remove them. They just fizzled out. So that tells me that there wasn't an issue.
Mhm.
So that would be the recommendation. Like, I don't, they weren't, licenses weren't pulled from the existing holders. They just fizzled out.
Right.
So,
Currently,
There
you
isn't any-
can, any one establishment can have up to 2 games.
Yeah, without having a license, but beyond that.
Well, they get a license, they
get a
get 2, they buy 2 licenses.
But if you have
It's
3 or
per
more,
game.
Then,
Well, then you're breaking you're breaking the prohibition.
Maybe the planning board, someone could make a motion on this.
And
and then take
last
a vote.
year, I was pursuing, I applied for a liquor license, which I also had about 20 years ago. And after 4 years, actually about 2 years, I gave it up. I kept the license, kept paying the fee for a couple of years. I never wanted a liquor license, frankly, but people kept saying that's the way to make money. And I tried it. I didn't like, I decided to try it again last year. Then I decided not to pursue it, and I decided to pursue this instead. So, I think this is a much more wholesome thing for the theater to have. I didn't want to turn it into a place where alcohol was served.
okay, so I'll make a motion that we send a favorable recommendation to the town council for a game room, recommending that they make any license regulations that they deem necessary.
Second.
Do we have a second? Okay. Any additions to that or any questions, comments?
And we'll add in about the definitions, to
Definition.
make sure that council reviews the definitions and that principal source of income may not be
Exactly.
appropriate or
Right.
necessary.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for coming and best of luck. Harry, we let you bring the chair and come on up. Yeah, just grab a chair and you can come over here. And if you guys could just shove a little bit.
I gotta take it off here in 5 minutes, but that's practice.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay, number 8 is a amendment to zoning ordinance, Article 5, Section 519. Discuss and act on a request to provide the town council with the findings and a recommendation for a proposed amendment by Christopher Wolf on zoning ordinance Section 519 regarding affordable housing. Chris, you have any comments you want to make before I turn it over to Jen and Allison?
No, I don't. Thank you.
No, this Chris, the other Chris, the other Chris, sorry, wrong Chris. Your coach, Chris.
Chris Warfold, I don't really know what you did with the information that we gave to you, and then I provided to Jen and to the housing board, to the planning. A summation of our last conversation I had before you on this. There was a meeting with you and the town council, which I did not attend. One reason was because I thought it was time for the conversation to be solely between the town council and planning on this issue. And I have no idea what you did with anything that was given to you since the previous time I sat before you or stood before you. So I don't know what you have.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, we did look at this several months ago and made a couple of recommendations, or we looked at it with some questions. So, okay. Yeah, Chris, go
Before I
ahead.
leave, from that meeting, that we had about, it was pretty broad, but we talked about this.
Yeah.
I think the bulk of the conversation revolved around the mechanisms for funding and who, I think I made the point, Keith, you were there, correct me if I'm wrong. Like, who is best equipped to do that? It's not the planning board. All right, we're not, we can agree in concept, which I think we all did. But who is going to set up the actual mechanism for the funding or the application process or the continuity between different projects or applications? Because I think, and we actually, Chris, you weren't there, but we all thank the work that you did because it gave us a baseline or a foundation to start with. But the roadblock that I saw was, do we pull in somebody that's like someone that has experience in this to set it up? Or do we, is it, I don't think it's in the finance director's purview either. Like some of the examples or some of the recommendations you gave for funding, and you went pretty in depth as far as like a clawback clause and percentages, all that is useful, but who's going to implement it? It's not within my purview as a planning board member, and I don't have the expertise. So that was, as I understood it, at the end of that meeting, kind of the next step is, all right, this is what we conceptually agree with. How are we going to implement it, and who can draw up I don't know what the word is, but the mechanism to move forward with that particular part of it, the funding part.
And to that point, on Monday, the town council meeting was with the housing board in part. And that was one of the questions is, the housing board does a small part of, I'll say, affordable attainable housing. And the housing board does agree that the solution is far outside what the housing board does. And we've asked, at Monday's meeting, I said nothing was practical for people who are unskilled in the area of how to go after funding and funding strategy to come up with this idea. We should retain some professional expertise in this area that could give us advice, because by the time we get up to speed, it could be another year on what are good mechanisms. So, that was one of the things that we brought up. As far as enforcement, that's been a constant issue at in these discussions. And in my response to that, it's the town that enforces this.
Which I agree with, but just let me go back to that first part. In your research though, what have other municipalities used for that? Like, is it their housing board, or is it a third party, or is it public-private partnership?
It's all over the place. A lot of it's an authority, and we discussed that and the problems, pros and cons of authority is it operates separately from the town.
Yeah.
And so, there may be a lot of hesitation on that, and I can understand that. So a housing authority does its own thing, and that the town loses kind of control on that. I don't know if that's a good thing in such a small community. But the housing board chair has made it very clear that she does not think the housing board is equipped, and I agree with her currently, to oversee, regulating and enforcing affordable housing and attainable housing as rentals or even as home ownership.
Right.
So
Which
But-
I agree with as well.
we just
I
don't.
think,
we're not
because
there.
we actually discussed that at the town council meeting, and that turned into, with the existing affordable projects that we have now.
Yeah.
Every single one has a different deed. There isn't any continuity between deed restrictions necessarily. It's all over the place, which is becoming problematic when it comes to things like enforcement, because you can't leave, in my opinion, at least here, you could do it in Florida, but you can't have a homeowners association in charge of enforcement. On this island, it doesn't seem,
It's too
it
small.
works in Florida, but it doesn't here.
It's so easy to make enemies, and it's a very small place, and I agree with you. But to me, that's why I look to the town. The town, they have employees, or should have employees, or could have employees. It's their job.
Yeah.
And if you don't like me doing my job, I'm sorry. That's my
Right,
job.
right.
It's not personal.
Yeah. The work that was done thus far is I appreciate of. The only big question out there is mechanism for some of the funding and the grants, if you would, or low interest loans. And have you talked to, and I haven't actually, I haven't talked to her in quite some time, but have you talked to Mary Jane about any of this? Because she usually has,
No,
she's been out of the loop for a while, which usually has the like I don't know what the word, the contacts or the
yeah,
savvy to figure it out.
there is a person I've spoken with who is really involved in this and has mentioned and going to another state agency to discuss this and kind of get some insight on what approaches we could take. Some of the ideas, again, there's so many ways of doing things, you know. If the town wants to get involved, can they give a tax a reduction? If you donate so much money towards affordable housing, you get a tax reduction on your property taxes for so many years. Plus, you get the benefit of the tax credit for the donation that you made. So, you know, that's just one thing. But then there's all these other public funds that are available. And everyone comes with strings, especially as you go up the chain towards the feds. But, you know, is it worth it? So we've been asked, you know, we are supposed to give our feedback to the town on that issue. So I've asked for the housing board to make that an agenda item for next Tuesday at our meeting. We need to fish or cut bait, even if it's the wrong bait. At least we've done something and we'll know whether that was the right way or not. Right now, we're just spinning our wheels. No one's afraid. Everyone's afraid to actually make a decision, I think.
Go ahead, Gabe. I'm just wondering why this isn't a division of the housing board. I mean, because if the housing board is part of the town, correct? It's an elected position, and why wouldn't there be a division or an add-on or an employee or something designated to the housing board for this particular
We just don't have one. That's a current.
Right.
I mean, if the town were to agree with you and do that, that would
Yeah.
really help us. We see,
It just doesn't make sense to have a completely separate entity involved in 519 when we have affordable housing
no, it's
as
401,
part of our town.
kinds of things, right? I
Well,
agree
this
with
is
you.
just one thing that would fall under that purview. Like this is one of a few other things that could fall on. Like,
Yeah, detached, attached.
Enforcement is one thing, but as far as all the, I'm sorry, but all the financial aspect of it
Right,
and
right.
managing the financial aspect and writing the grants and bringing in the income, and it just seems like that would be an affordable housing in the.
We were
affordable
supposed to
housing
have a
purview.
meeting with the town manager, and I had to go tend to my dog at Monday's meeting. I had stayed till 9:30. And I know the next item was grants, and I didn't hear anything about it. No one gave me any feedback, so I don't know what came about. We've been directed to work with the town manager.
We actually have
So that's the
Okay.
part I missed.
Yes, please do.
Yeah. Well, and let me just,
Both Chris is Keith Stover, Beacon Hill Road. Both Chris's recollection, I agree with, but there are at least two questions here. One is when we do Thomas and the project Cindy and Chris and their colleagues are working on, which will have 16 rental units. The town by far will be the largest owner of rental property on the island.
Mhm.
So we're gonna have to, we gotta figure that out. Now, there are plenty of companies you can hire to do that. There are, there are all sorts of models. But that has to be figured out somehow. Particularly if we want it to stay nice and affordable and not abused in any way, et cetera. There's gotta be some construct around that. So that's one question. The other question, and this is where I am on Chris Warfel's proposal. I'm a big supporter of the idea of figuring out ways I'm going to use 513 just as a generic, because that's what we all do. Of using, for example, incentives, whatever, whatever we decide that is. It could be, we do a pilot on capital subsidy for people who want to build an affordable
Right.
513. It could be that if you build one, the entire property isn't taxed for, for whatever, the period of a mortgage. There are all kinds of forms that could take. My own opinion is that we ought to try that and sort of try it with a couple of inputs first, rather than, 4 or 5 different ones, just to see what works. But all of those questions beg, is there anybody who's waking up in the morning saying, what are we going to do on housing? Or what are we going to, to me, we've got to figure out over time how we staff this, because the problem's not going away. And I would argue that the challenge that we've had on housing is not a lack of community consensus, but it's very episodic. You know what I mean? Where it's sort of like, oh gosh, thank God somebody just donated 4 acres to us. Let's do a housing development. And then, so I, on the one hand, am thrilled, really genuinely thrilled and grateful for the stuff that's happening. On the other hand, I hope that one of the goals that I have is having us have an ongoing conversation about what we're going to need in 3 years and 5 years and 10 years, including maybe we don't need as much in 10 years. That my mind is open. My mind is open to all those possibilities. So anyway, I didn't mean to turn this into a speech.
Well,
but-
that's fine, because
No,
I
thank
think in the long run, while we meaning Alice will write a 519 for you, a lot of the direction is really going to have to come from the town council.
Yeah, I mean, if,
Those are decisions that the planning board is not either equipped or really allowed
And
to do.
I should say that this is just Keith Stover fantasy land. This is not where the council is.
Everything has to start somewhere, and I
Yes.
just think there's too much work that's been done, and thank you, Chris Warfel, for taking this on, because it is important to have people like yourself putting your foot forward and getting things done. And it's gone too far to just drop by the wayside. So maybe it is time for the council to talk with the housing board about staff and
Yeah.
creating these
Yeah,
positions.
and Allison and Jen.
To make this happen.
Because, I mean, she might not say it, but, have you seen the volume, the volume of stuff that's coming
Yeah.
into that department? Like what, at what point is there no enforcement? Not because people aren't inclined to enforce, but because there's literally
Nobody.
Exactly. This is see you, brother. Right. Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think some of the people think that Jen should put her hard hat on and march around and knock on people's doors. And, you can't, it is America after all. But if I were, what I hope to do, if you guys report favorably on this, is to start with a pilot that gets proposed to the financial town meeting to fund a small scale capital subsidy program for accessory dwelling units. That's what I would like to do. I'd like to give that a shot. And that yeah.
Contractors and to modular ask if you did a larger scale project, we needed 20 minutes, they offer discount literally like 50 to 20%. It's a lot of money.
Yeah.
Probably $400,000.
So I think, again, I don't want to sort of subsume what you're talking about with my nonsense, but what Chris has proposed here, I think, provides a framework for that kind of conversation at the town council at a critical time as we're going through budget and headed toward financial town meeting. That's my opinion.
So does that, oh, sorry.
I just want to say thanks, yeah, again, Chris and Keith. And I have a friend who's interested in helping, just in terms of pro bono legal.
So in regards to this specific agenda item, so getting a recommendation to the town council in a time frame. I mean, it's obviously the planning board's decision, but maybe what you do is comment on the concept of it versus the actual specific language, which needs more
Of
review
course.
and edits. So, but we're not going to get into that. This is, an application that was submitted by Chris. It's not something that generated by the planning board. You don't need to edit this. You don't need to rewrite it. You just need to comment on it, give your recommendation to the planning, to the town council. So you can weigh in. I think the planning board maybe just first deciding whether or not you support the concept of a public, some public financial assistance for the creation of accessory dwelling units. And the town council can then decide whether or not, as far as the policy decisions in regards to the management of this program, the funding of this program, the financials, the tax implications of that, like outside of really the scope of the planning board. And that would take too long of a time frame for you to, you don't need to feel like you need to edit this document.
yeah, and I do have a follow-up question or a comment maybe, Keith. What I envisioned also was to have the town have a fund, let's just call it a housing fund for the lack of a better word, or affordable housing fund. If the town runs a project and it's finished and all the buildings are sold, you get that money back so that you can do another project. Isn't that correct?
I think it's possible. I think one of the challenges, and it's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's a challenge, is the town has virtually no ability to be nimble when an opportunity arises. And a great example of that, that's, very real, is Island Home, the one that Frank, the DBAs are doing up here. It's a great project. But when that was, I think the banks had taken it and were auctioning it. The town didn't participate because we have a whole process that we would have to go through in order to get approval to even be in that ballgame. Because if you were engaged in an auction, someone might bid 10 and we might want to bid 11, but if we went to financial town, it's there's a way the marketplace can be nimble, but we can't. And I think I don't know that there's a way around that, except you could decide, we could, theoretically, to create a fund.
That's what I mean.
And, when opportunities arise,
Right.
a lot, or, something like that, the town could do that. And as you say, either replenish it or just say, look, we're going to create $1 million fund and it's to be more nimble around housing opportunities.
Right.
And,
I was reminded of that when I first learned a number of years ago that some historical societies have such a fund for the purpose of buying up homes that they value, that they don't like to see demolished or remodeled and lose their historic character.
Yeah.
And then when they buy that house, they deed restrict it to make sure that those characteristics stay in place, and then they resell it so that it's a revolving bank account.
So one of the things it just occurred to me now, and I haven't really thought it through, but perhaps if you guys are inclined to move this along, we can schedule a work session just on this so that, we can have planning and other, even housing advocates come and sort of talk about some of these ideas. I'm very, a broken record on Rome wasn't built in a day here. Like we have to take steps. But I think the more we talk about this stuff, the more likely it is we hit on a cut. Let's face it, we're gonna need unique solutions here. We're not, we can't go to Rhode Island Housing and say, we're gonna do a 50-unit apartment building, you know?
Right.
So anyway,
So I'm comfortable moving forward myself with the understanding that we don't have to solve the financial arrangements of it.
We don't have,
When you receive an application from someone to amend zoning ordinance, it's not planning board's responsibility to edit it. That's the language they provided and support.
Yeah.
So they're not asking you or requesting that you modify it. They're just,
Yeah.
the town council has asked whether or not, to review it and send to them a recommendation, whether you support it or not, and your concerns or no concerns, and whether or not it's consistent with the comprehensive plan. Those are what you're being requested to do, and there's a time frame because it's an official request, right, that went to the town council. There's
And would you-
deadlines, so, we don't want to necessarily delay the conversation.
right.
And so the planning board really, this is not ready to be, I wouldn't support adoption of this, given that there's some specific language that needs to be, that's out of date based on amendments that have occurred. There's that language in there still, the handicap accessible apartments that was removed in 2018, and then the ADU amendments that occurred in 2022 aren't reflected in these specific language.
Okay.
So those things have to be cleaned up.
Okay.
And I would recommend further review of the specific financial, statements within here.
Is
But
it
as far as
why?
the concept, that's what I'm saying, maybe the planning board weighs in on the concept
Sure.
versus getting into editing this document.
And since Keith used the expression, I think was at least analogous to experimentation, I always like to bring up the possibility of a sunset clause so that we are experimenting. We don't want to be committed forever to something that we don't really know how it's going to work, but give it a reasonable sunset clause so that at least we'll be forced to re-examine it and keep that conversation going.
Yeah, I know the town has used sunset clauses in the past. I guess one concern with that is that if someone's not watching that, it could sunset. If you have something that you support and is successful and nobody catches that sunset clause comes up and the zoning goes away,
that's
that's a
true.
potential concern.
Can you do a
And
sunset
then
clause
you
by
can always
appellation?
at any point amend. If something's not, if there's concerns
It's
with
not
with the
working.
zoning ordinance.
All
You
right.
can go back
That's fine too.
and make those amendments.
Okay.
But that's just my thought on the sunset clause. It depends on what I think it's effective in certain cases, but
Okay.
this is a very substantial, significant, big policy and program, so I don't know if you
All
want
right.
to put a sunset, like if you're developing, there's gonna be a lot of work going into developing this, I would think, and a lot more conversations and structure that has to be set up behind this, so.
Okay.
But you might, I mean, the
I
council
would-
may wish to do that, that's,
No,
yeah.
I withdraw the suggestion.
Yeah, I had submitted, 2 months ago, based on the conversation, some things that needed to be done, quote unquote. So you're telling me you feel it was not planning's responsibility to take any of that and make any changes? It was my responsibility?
No, I'm not saying it's anyone's responsibility, I'm saying you
Well, somebody
submitted
has
to
to do
the,
something.
Chris, don't raise your voice at me.
I'm not raising my voice. I'm saying somebody has to do something.
I'm explaining, and Jen can support on this, when a private individual submits an application to the town council to amend a zoning regulation, just as we just had this, the prior applicant, right? It's not necessarily, the planning board doesn't need to, or may not, the applicant may not want them to amend the language that was submitted.
There should be a process
You-
for that
you-
to occur, right? That's why I went through and listened to everything that was said in the last meeting. And I wrote down all the recommendations for changes, all the concerns, including eliminate section I, which was the handicap thing,
Yeah.
handicap reference. So what you're saying is, in the interim, nobody made any changes, no recommendations, and no one has responsibility to do that. That's mind-boggling to me. So basically what I should have done is taken those quote unquote, some things that need to be done and resubmitted this. Would that would have been the process? Okay, thank you. And I wasn't yelling. I'm just, okay. And with respect to your comment about the sunset clause and your concern, is it possible, you're concerned about it being missed, which has, I think, almost happened in the past. Can we do a sunset clause by affirmation? Would that cover that? Where we actually have to affirm that the sunset clause is now in effect?
After listening to Allison, I withdraw the suggestion.
I think a sunset clause is a good idea on a lot of things. Because,
We've used it in the past, Chris, and it has been effective, but because we're trying different experimental ways of doing the funding for this, Allison is not recommending it, so I think maybe for now, I would leave it off. We could always add it in at a later date.
I will take that off. That was number 12. Okay.
As I said, I think that what we would be willing and should do is have Allison write a cover letter supporting this concept and ask the town council to have a meeting so that we could discuss various ways of funding affordable housing, setting up incentives, asking for grants, et cetera.
Okay. Thank you very
I
much.
think that's what we're headed.
And Chris, I mean, to further explain that, I know you seem to be in disagreement with what I'm saying. An applicant submits language, specific language, and then if I start editing what you propose, like, how do I know you supporting the language? I'm basically modifying your specific application and language. How do I know that I'm changing what you applied for, and I don't know if, then you don't support it. And that, we got into that with the solar ordinance, right? I mean, right, but I had to write the language that the planning board supported. We were trying to work together collaboratively in that process, and you weren't happy with the outcome. This is the language you submitted. But you seem to not, at this, right, but after the fact, you keep saying that you didn't support the language that we ended up adopting. Right. But it's a similar process, so where
But I thought, that there would be one meeting every 2 months on this, and that there would be a direction on how to.
Well, what happened was, when we had this meeting, we talked about the planning board raised some questions about the language and the policy, and we talked about having a meeting that it could be further discussed with the town council at that joint session, and where maybe we would learn more about what the town felt, how this could be established, what the program, more details on the program, the policy outlining that before. This is specific language and there's no real policy or outline or official support to work off of. I just feel like it's backwards, but I'm
also afraid that we could write something and the town council wants to move in a slightly different direction. So until we know for sure to do a final
to
draft.
come up with to craft specific language before knowing the policy that the town council wishes to implement. But, I mean, do you agree? I mean, you don't want the planning board to start editing this document and then hold you up from going to the council and making decisions?
I want the planning board to support it as much to the point as possible until there's an impasse. And then that's like with the solar ordinance, I realized things were not going to change. And I said, okay, the next stop is the town council. We haven't even gone down that road. And again, to the point of fishing or cut bait, everyone cannot keep passing the responsibility for who is going to make changes here. I am going to take the responsibility of editing the document per the concerns that were expressed to me 2 months ago. And we can work from that because if you just reiterate, it still has that handicap section I in there, which is absolutely not applicable anymore. I will make those changes. I will resubmit them to you. Jen, you says that you're indicating that sets the clock back again.
We don't
Starts
need
the
to-
clock.
well, you don't, we're not, you don't need to resubmit that to the planning board.
I think if the town council is required to advertise something.
Yeah.
The language is changed.
Changed.
15 times, you
Okay.
know, you want to make sure they're advertising the correct language.
Okay.
And that the board is reviewing the correct language. It's your amendment, it's your application.
see.
That is your.
I do understand. I understand that. I thought that this would be more of a back and forth. Let's change this. But do you agree with this? And to the point where like, I don't agree with this, and I would bring it to the town council. I thought you would pass a recommendation to the town council and they would review it and then I would get, or others would get to come in and say, well, we would like to have this changed back to something else because we don't agree with planning.
Right, but I think that's what Margie's saying too, to Allison, that it's not specific language, need not be specific and final yet.
But we would like support, right?
Until.
As much as
The
possible.
planning board's not saying they're not supporting
Then
it.
it goes to the council, then it- Yeah. The concept.
No, Chris, yeah, and you don't need to come back to the planning board can make a decision tonight on the recommendation and the language, but as far as rewriting your ordinance at this stage, I'm not sure the planning board wants to put this on further meetings without it going back to getting their recommendation to the town council in a timely manner. And the town council can then, if the town council wants to give more direction and come back to the planning board with their, say, we support this policy and, we want to continue drafting this ordinance and, we can start engaging other people that, like I mentioned in the past and I gave them a heads up, but finance, tax assessor, other people that are more, this is beyond land use. This is financial policy of the town. So it's
However,
not just the planning board that
We could
should
send
be
a
crafting this.
recommendation That the town council take a look at affordable housing and develop a mechanism for funding for the affordable apartments or town houses or houses, whatever they're choosing to do. And that certainly will, shall we say, start the ball rolling so that they're going to take a look and have a discussion. And I hope that he said they would have a meeting where several different entities can sit down and talk together.
Do you
Because
accept
we're like,
correspondence?
None of us
Sorry.
here are experts on how to finance any of this kind of stuff. We don't know.
Do you accept correspondence? Because I would like to make the changes and just send them to you. It's not that you would have to act upon them. It's just that here's what I did.
Sure,
No
yeah.
hearing, no agenda item,
Yeah,
just
send
so
it-
there's no
yeah.
surprises. I
Yeah.
don't want to surprise anybody on this.
Okay.
Okay, that's.
Jen,
really-
will you forward it to me?
Send it to Jen and
To
she can
us.
Okay.
forward it to us. Absolutely. All right. Thank you very much for
Thank you.
coming. Allison, do you want to write a memo supporting the concept, but we will.
Did the planning board vote? Sorry, did you just vote on that?
No.
Oh,
we did
okay.
not.
I was like, did I miss it?
No,
Yes,
no, no.
I will
You're not
write
voting.
whatever you
I'll-
tell me. to
I guess
write.
I'm asking, is it better to write a letter and send it on in, or do we want to wait until Chris gives us back his next version?
No, I want you to send something to town council.
Mhm,
Okay.
Yeah,
mhm.
and get this, don't want to delay the project, because it is, there's a timeline, right? They have it, I think it's in March that they need to advertise
Yes.
it unless he extends the
Unless he
timeframe
extends it
again, and I
again,
don't
wrote down
want to
somewhere
go
in
down
this
that
message.
road.
Yeah,
Why
March.
wouldn't we have said at his very first meeting that we're not here to rewrite? I mean, we've been going back and forth, so I'm confused that he's now told, well, this isn't our purview, even though we've been giving suggestions of going back and forth. And now, and I'm just trying to soften this blow of we're not doing
Well, it's, yeah, explain this, Jen.
Submit an application to amend the zoning ordinance, just like you had Barry Color for this one. Yeah. It's their responsibility to amend it, to. Okay. To participate in.
Oh, he's still upset about the solar panels, which we didn't agree with.
Mhm.
Certainly when we left last time, we told them we were having a joint meeting with town council. Yes. Very soon, and that this would be discussed. And frankly, I think during that meeting, we touched on it, but we didn't focus on this proposal in the way that we might have led him to believe. I think he was planning, speaking for him, I think he was planning to come back for almost a report on what we had talked to, which Chris did kind of give. Correct me if I'm wrong, but, and so I think our suggestion to now send a letter saying we support this concept to the town council and whether.
Yeah,
Creating a section.
Yes, we're creating.
Or creating some kind of, funding mechanism, this whole program.
may I just point out an irony here? I actually think what you're contemplating doing is better from Chris's perspective in terms of moving the ball down the field
I agree.
than what he's asking for.
I
And
agree.
I expect that he probably thinks that I wasn't being helpful, but he and I are actually pretty well aligned on this in terms of the concept. I want to make sure that we're jumping in with both feet during this budget season. I would personally, and this is not apropos of what everybody's, sort of responsibility, how that works, but don't change it because it's going to get changed. Like, that's the virtual certainty, right? That's what
I don't want to delay it. And then the planning
And-
board would be blamed for holding it up and not taking too
Yeah.
long, even though you were putting thoughtful questions forward and editing it.
Yeah,
Going back. Suggestions.
yes.
So we were already.
We haven't, he has not updated this
No, we
document
haven't touched
that
it yet.
we,
Well, we did go through it. We gave you some suggestions and we told them things to remove because it didn't apply. Because and that's, they may not have understood that.
If you're, as a planning board, want amendments to present to the town council, then yes, the planner, the staff, all of us are gonna work on those amendments with you. But if the public is coming forward with a proposed amendment, it's
Right.
their responsibility to update it. to
Right.
make the changes.
Yeah.
If not, it starts to
You guys aren't staffing the public.
what that
right,
applicant paid for to.
right, because I'm not writing like a.
Yeah.
No. And I think it's a
No.
little bit, to be honest, confusing because it feels like
Sorry.
it's not necessarily clearly a private applicant or individual that's like doing this on behalf of their client. Like it's almost like the town council's involved, but not officially. And then it's a public like a town program. So it feels like
Yeah.
it's a little bit more gray in this case, but it's not. That's why I would prefer it come from the town council if the planning board is gonna start editing this document, that it is a town policy that the planning board and the town council would like to craft. And it's supported by the town, not coming from private individual, like it's yeah, like it should, yeah, is it the housing board, the town council, the planning board generating this? And then that's when the town staff would be editing it and working collaboratively with it versus we still don't know if the town council supports this 519 concept. It's not come from a memo from them, you know.
If we have suggestions in the future, when this talking about it, can we come as citizens to the council meeting to make suggestions?
You could.
And do that, but frankly, part of the reason I wanted to do that is to establish that if you have ideas, come up with that. Let's
Collaborate. Great. Yeah, Because I think it takes all of us, because in the long run, you've got to set the policy and you've got to fund the money. Those are things we.
Well, that's
we
the
do.
thing. Why would the towns, that town staff spend time creating an ordinance and figuring out all the specifics, and then there's no funding?
Or support. Yeah. Or support. Okay. Yeah.
All right.
They're not going anywhere with it. Okay. Yeah. me too.
Yes.
I make a motion-
Please do.
I make a motion to have the planning board send a memo supporting the concepts mentioned in the proposed 519, with the hopes of following up with the town council to discuss mechanisms of funding for affordable housing. Anything you want me to add to that, Allison?
No, that's too soon, I think.
Okay. Okay.
And-
Fine.
And did I
Okay, do I have a second and then we'll take comments?
second?
Okay, all right, any
Di-
comments?
I just want to make sure I understand you correctly, because I want to have that meeting with the town council.
Not only do I want it with us and the town council, but affordable housing, and I think maybe
Yeah.
Amy Lamb, because she has the finance, and anybody else that we think of that should be included. Alice and Jen, absolutely.
They should get double pay. They're doing the work of
Okay.
two.
Maybe stop having so many meetings.
All right. Anything else
All right.
you want me to include, or make sure Allison includes in the memo? She will.
I mean, if there's
Okay.
some specific questions or, I mean, I think I can pull that from our
I think
minutes from
maybe just
before,
writing
but
and put-
like
Absolutely. Okay.
I can just leave it kind of generally described, kind of why, not adopting it
Yeah.
as is, that it needs
Because it's gonna
another
be
discussion and
based
review,
on
but you
policy
support
set up by
the
the town
concept in
council.
general and the need for affordable housing is consistent with the comprehensive plan.
Okay,
And
that's great.
is that the tone you're looking,
Yeah.
yeah, I
That-
think,
That's great. That's fine. Go with it.
Yes.
Absolutely.
yeah.
That's a good
And I can
question.
provide the background that there was a similar program in the ordinance, right? Then, or maybe I don't complicate matters.
I think she's got enough information. All right. All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye, 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 aye,
Thank
aye.
God, motion carries. Okay, since we've lost several members of our board, I'm going to recommend that we
Yes.
send the housing shortage discussion for the next month or even into April if necessary.
Sure,
If that's okay with you?
of course,
All
I
right.
understand.
I think we.
As long as we keep the conversation going. I will
will
be.
not.
I will be.
Okay. March 8th, March 8th. And,
Keith, just, Keith,
okay, yep.
Make
sure
sure.
you're here. There's a rule. Do we have minutes?
Keith,
Okay. Minutes will be done next month.
okay.
I make a motion that the meeting be adjourned. Okay, second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. This was good. Thank you. March 8th. 4 o'clock.
And consensus.
If you want to, I'm going to be around this weekend if you want.
Oh, okay, oh, okay.
Yeah, how are you? How about you?
Wonderful.
Glad you're still here, Dave.